Hello, welcome to Junior and Senior and I. I'm super excited to have Prabin and Simon with me today. Both solopreneurs and both have different journeys into solopreneurship that feel really interesting for me to discuss. To start, Prabin, could you introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less?
Yeah, sure. I think I'll do it in 3 sentences actually. So, hello, I'm Prabin, and I'm a Ruby on Rails freelancer, and I have been working as a freelancer for last 7 years, like from the start of my career. And I'm currently building zero config Rails, which helps automate the initial setup, which are boring and like very repetitive in nature. For Rails, so that it can also save it takes normally to do that in couple of hours to 1 or 2 days. So, but with zero config Rails, it will take only like 30 minutes at max.
Cool. What about you, Simon?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Simon. I'm a solopreneur. I've been doing this, I guess, since the early 2010s. I started doing Shopify apps, and yeah, right now I'm trying to build a SaaS solution for creating command line terminal programs. It's called Proggy. Go check it out, proggy.io. Yeah, similar to Prabin, I'm also a Ruby on Rails developer, and I dabble in a bunch of other languages as well, like Go and JavaScript, Swift, that sort of stuff.
Cool. It feels like you both have you're both in different phases of your solopreneur career. What pushed you guys to want to become a solopreneur and to make that extra effort?
Yeah. So I don't know if I will say myself as solopreneur, to be honest. And what pushed me? Like I just want to get out here and like build stops, just for my learning, to make connections and network. Like I have known like Simon and you from Twitter because I started being there and showing my presence. So uh, what pushed me is like improvement. Like I want to improve at this daily, and the thing that actually motivated me to study zero config Rails was I actually lost my job like 3 months ago, and I had a lot of time. I actually wanted to like start the zero config Rails from like 1 year ago, but I really couldn't push myself with all the things that were going on, like with client project, and then I was thinking like how I will juggle between these. But yeah, when I lost the job, like it really gave me a lot of time to think and have some clarity on what I want to do next. So that's how zero configures actually started, and I started building on in that 2 month window, and I'm here today.
Okay, and so I feel like you're stressing the learning part of that process. But zero config Rails is something that you aim to also get some benefit, like financial benefits from it, or is it just, oh, if I get some money out of it, fine, but it's really about the learning, and once I stop learning, it will be quote unquote done for me?
Uh, I don't know what to say because I'm really early, but I don't have like I should make this much profit. Like I don't have those financials in my mind. I actually want to learn, and I actually want to build and get connected with more and more founders. I think that will help me in the journey ahead. Like I don't want to be a developer, only developer, for the
Okay.
rest of my life. I want to be a builder as well. So, yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Makes sense. And what about you, Simon? What pushed you to become a really prolific, if I followed your introduction rightly, a really prolific solopreneur?
Yeah, I mean, to be blunt, when I started all this, I needed to get out of my previous job. I hated my job. I mean, like Prabin, right? Like it's, when he said, when he got, let go from his previous job, he started thinking more seriously about solopreneurship and kind of starting, his other hustles. I mean, like I feel like for a lot of us, we feel the same way, right? It's usually some sort of tragic thing that's happening at work. Either, somebody, made you really upset, or something really bad happened, or you got let go. And you're like, you know what, screw this. I'm just going to, make it out on my own. I'm going to do something, right? Because online,
Mm.
you see all these people and they have lots of success with it. And you're like, I could do that too. So for myself, it was, I was probably, in my early mid 30s at that time. And, I already had some kids and I wanted to spend more time with them. And I hated how my day job, I was there until like 9, 10 p.m. and it really
Mm.
sucked. And I said to my wife, like, I can't do this. So, I started looking into making money online. When I was much younger, when I was in my 20s, actually, I actually created e-commerce business. So I kind of had a taste of what online money feels like. And it feels great because you could be out doing stuff and then you see this notification that you made some money and you're like, yes, So in those days, I wanted to do something programming because, SaaS, this is the early 2010s, mind you. There
Mm.
were a lot of people, or there were some people that was making like decent money online, right? We're talking, $400,000, $500,000. Like DHH was making a presentation, I think, to one of the YC batches, or I think at Stanford, how you can create $1 million company. All you need is 2,000 customers, each paying you, I think, like $50 or whatever, $100 a month. And it was like, it was an eye opener. It's like, wow, I can make that kind of money,
Mm.
doing Ruby on Rails, or some sort of SaaS app that kind of replicated one of the pre-existing desktop apps. And so when
Mm.
you hear that, you're really inspired and motivated to kind of try this yourself. And so that's what I did. Um, I wanted to get out of my existing job and spend more time with my family, have that flexibility, which didn't exist. And I mean, I'm
Mm.
I'm glad I did, because you get back a lot of time. But yeah, it's definitely not an easy journey. I think going back, there's
Mm.
definitely certain things I would do differently. But that was my motivation for entering into
Mm.
this arena. Yeah.
Okay, which leads me. You gave me a really good segue to ask you how do you keep motivating on it, right? Because every time I try to do a side project, I'm really motivated for 5 days. I do my thing. Oh, this is gonna be so cool! I'm gonna create a game that's gonna do this and that, and then I just fizzles out, and it stays there as a repo that's never finished. How do you guys keep that motivation to regularly or every day or every week or whatever, whenever you need, put some time into it and keep growing your projects?
I want to give a disclaimer that I'm really, really lazy. So yeah, so I'm not really that motivated, but uh, I have seen a lot of people say, like, uh, be present, be present every day. Just come and show up there. Like, it's just a habit. Like, when I started tweeting, it was really hard. I didn't know what to tweet. I didn't really have anyone to like tweet to, but I still kept going. I didn't have any audience. I didn't have anyone, but I still kept going because uh, doing that, it built up the habit of tweeting. So same with, I think, same thing happens with solopreneurship or like building a side project as well. You just have to show up, and the thing that really motivates you is take someone's money, and you will feel like you have to do it because you have someone to answer to because you have
Sure.
already taken some money. So you need motivation for that. So that's also one factor that plays here. But other than that, I think just trying to show up every day and just doing
Mm.
thing and just doing thing, and then again, like I had already said before, like meeting like-minded people. That's what motivates me. Like this networking, learning from others, like learning really, really good thing, and like from so experienced people. Like Simon has doing this from around 2010, and I started my journey from 2017. So like like I'll be able to learn so much from experienced people like him,
Mhm.
and that's like one of the motivating factor as well for me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, to answer that question, what motivates me? I think, overarching all this, right, is the motivation is, you got to make a living. You got to make some money, right? For myself, I have family to feed. So you can't get any more real than that. But I mean, what motivates me after I launch a project, it fails, and how do I keep going on is I go and get a job, or I go and get a freelancing or a contract gig, and I remind myself how much I hate that. Um, because I remember certain engagements, I'm like sitting there, I'm like thinking, this really sucks. Why am I not working on my own project? And there's nothing more of a sinking feeling is that you're working towards somebody else's goal. You're working towards this thing that you don't even like anyways. And you look
Mm.
at it and you think to yourself, I should really, try and start something on my own. So yeah, for me, it's like rekindling that feeling of why I wanted to start going off on my own in the first place. Um, Prabin makes a good point, right? Like when you start getting a little bit of traction and you take other people's money, that's also a pretty big motivator, because you kind of feel like now you have this responsibility to continue your project, um, and you have to kind of push on. And I would say that projects of mine that have really kind of motivated me in the past were the ones where I earned significant amount of money,
Mm.
because the more you earn, it kind of snowballs into itself. Like if you notice a lot of indie hackers online, the ones that kind of become increasingly more prolific, they tend to enjoy success, and that success snowballs. But, I also notice like, people, you know, like a whole cohort of my colleagues that in the solopreneurship kind of space, that once they don't enjoy any success or they've never tasted it before, that's very demotivating similarly in the other direction. And it's,
Mm.
it's very easy to kind of sink back into not being a solopreneur. Um, so I mean, what motivates me is that, remembering that feeling of making that first internet dollar, and wanting to replicate that, getting that dopamine hit, so to speak, to feel like, that I'm creating something that didn't exist before I created it, and it's actually making money. And it's, ideally, it's making enough money that it justifies all the time that we spend into it. Because I forgot where I saw this, but I think a lot of solopreneurs who've done contracting and freelancing, we all know is like it's faster to make money freelancing and contracting, right? It's just so much
Mm.
easier. Like the whole process is there. But it's funny, right? Like that can, doing it in that direction, it can only motivate you so much because that kind of work is demotivating as well in its own way. Versus,
Mm.
doing the solopreneurship thing, you can be making 1/10 as much and be much more motivated simply because it's your own thing. You're, kind of charting your own path. So there's a multitude of kind of these reasons that solopreneurship kind of motivates you is that you own it. It's something that you created. It's your baby.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Okay. I want to pinpoint on what you said about that dopamine hit that once like success begets success, right? Like you start winning and you get into a habit of winning, quote unquote. Do you have a strategy that you use for that? Like, do you try to, okay, I'm going to just ship something as fast as possible to get that first dollar and then we'll see? Or,
Yeah. I think, I mean, I'm a believer, first of all, I want to just say, like, I'm a believer in the fact that, getting that product market fit is not something that is that straightforward. In other words, you know, and it's a little bit of an unpopular opinion, because I have posted this before on Twitter and on X, that I believe there is a certain element of luck in this. Um,
Mhm.
and I think, like, we were talking about, in our previous call, like one of my most successful apps was just something I launched on a whim without any market research, and it took me like 24 hours to code the whole thing from top to bottom. And you know, like, I can't tell you, like, oh yeah, I planned it out, like I had a strategy for getting there. No, it just kind of happened. And once I realized that, I was like, crap, like, you really have to just launch and see. Ideally, you're launching into a space that you enjoy working with, like, you like the customer, you like the business topic that you're trying to address, and that it can command a high enough price point to continue motivating you and growing your business.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I don't have a strategy to kind of, motivate myself or to kind of, seek out success. I do think, the approach that a lot of, like Justin Jackson, for example, or Mark, I can't pronounce his last name, but we all know, the boilerplate guy. The fact that they launch so many things, I think, increases their surface area for success.
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing. Like, if you're, like for myself, like, I have kids, I lots of my free time is kind of sucked away into their activities and stuff like that. But you know, if I was like independent, completely independent, I would try and follow what they're doing as much as possible, and in terms of just like shipping,
Mhm.
and seeing what sticks, because you really don't know what will stick. um some stuff is going to just take off, and people can tweet about, okay, this was my strategy for this, but I don't believe it. I really don't buy it. It's more of like justifying the whole story after the fact that it's happened.
Okay. And you, Pravin, did you also, was it like, okay, this is a project I might enjoy, let's see what happens? Or did you have a strategy in mind of, okay, this is my plan of attack and this is how it's going to work? And if you did, was the reality similar to your plan?
Yeah,
Or
it was something that I really enjoyed, because if you know that I also worked on Rails.new,
okay.
which actually automates the Mac setup with Ruby on Rails. From that point, I started loving DX developer experience, and I really wanted to like make our lives easier. So I wanted to build things that would like
Mhm.
help save us time. So that was the reason, and that's how zero config Rails really started. Uh, and Yeah, so there was no market research, and I still don't know how to do market research, to be honest. So I'm just putting me like out here in Twitter and just like doing things every day and providing updates. And I'm having some sales. Like I
Mhm.
just got one more sale today. So it's all Twitter for me right now, and uh, like Simon won't agree on this because we need to actually do the market research, and also like if I'm on Twitter, then I'll have really low sale, but I actually should market myself in other places as well, like being helpful in Twitter, LinkedIn, and those places, and also doing SEO stuffs, which
Mhm.
I'm not doing it right now. So yeah. So to answer the question, no market research. It
Mhm.
just came like what I enjoyed, and I just want to help people, but also get a taste
Okay.
of the internet money, like how it feels, other than just contracting.
Okay. And how much of, like, proportion wise, do you guys think you spend in building your product vs talking about your product or doing evangelization on X, on Twitter, or for Prabin, I'm guessing it's mostly Twitter. For Simon, I don't know if it's mostly Twitter, but how much time is it building the product versus talking to your customers, talking to prospective customers, etc.?
Yeah, like, like for myself, the products that have worked the best in the past, I've actually had to talk to customers. It's not, and I tweeted this out like I think last week. It's not my favorite thing to do.
Mhm.
But it does work, right? Like to jump on the calls and to talk to them and to really send out cold emails essentially, because it's more targeted. You're not farming for likes or for views or for things that don't convert directly into sales. So I find like that stuff is the highest yield, where if you can talk directly to stakeholders, people who want to buy your stuff at the price point that you want to
Mhm.
sell it at, that is really the key. And it's not glorious, right? Like you're not going to be like Levels.io and getting like a million likes because you launched some AI tool. But it's like you're grinding it. I hate it. I really hate it. I mean, I'll be completely forthright with this.
Mhm.
Sending emails and then like getting no replies and then sending more emails and then getting one reply, jumping on a call and then realizing the other guy's not showing up. Like it sucks. But like that's I find like that takes up the most time, that and splitting up with building features, like, and very specific features too, right? Not features that work for everybody, but features for that one specific customer
Mhm.
that you were just on the call with. So for myself, it's sort of like 50-50 between kind of marketing or customer development and then building it. And in the customer development part, it gets so darn busy because you got all the calls, all the emails, and then you got to work on SEO if you really want that long tail traffic to come
Mhm.
in eventually. And Google is, it's becoming less and less, useful these days. I mean, like looking ahead on the horizon, right? Like, I think it was like Philip, I forgot his last name, but he's also not a solopreneur. You'll recognize him on Twitter, but he was tweeting something like how going forward, like AI being so prolific, text-based marketing isn't going to be as useful. And he basically said, look, you gotta do more video, like, like show your face basically, because that's harder to fake. And I'm thinking like that's now going to have to go into that 50% I just mentioned
Mhm.
of marketing. You're going to have to, demo your product. You're going to have to, spend more time editing. So I anticipate that for myself in the future, building will probably like shrink down to like 20 to 30%, and the other 50 to 70, 80% is going to be like just pure marketing. Um, yeah, that's it. It's a game of marketing. I think most of us who are developers, like people can build stuff, and people can build pretty high quality stuff, especially the ones who come out and work as solopreneurs. Like this is people are skilled, no doubt. But the real differentiator is being able to market it and spending a lot of
Mm.
time doing so, and willing to spend a lot of time to do so.
Makes sense. Do you have a similar experience or time time repartition, Prabin?
Like I get to work 3 to 4 hours in my product, and I have not really done a lot of marketing, so that's why
Mhm.
I'm only like staying on Twitter and doing things.
Mhm.
So for now, like I'm mostly doing building, but like Twitter is like I don't feel
Okay.
like I have to give any extra uh, team on that because I do that every day,
Mhm.
and it has just been my habit to do it. But like Simon said, if I start thinking about SEOs and those stuffs, then it will really be hard for me to like balance out all. And as you like build things, like
Mhm.
you get so many product ideas, and like it's really hard to prioritize which one. And then I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. So I want to do everything, but I don't have time. So yeah, that product like a feature prioritization is also like really hard as you go on. But yeah, to answer the question right now, I don't spend a lot of time on marketing. I like when I have a release, then I go to like every
Mhm.
places possible and just like give like post the video demo of me talking about the zero conflicts. Otherwise, not a lot of time.
Mhm.
I spend most of it in building.
Okay. Which leads me to a question that's more focused on Simon this time. Because I feel like the timeline of Prabin is different, because it's like, okay, now I'm focused on building and then I will go to marketing. Do you also have a cut, Simon, where you say, okay, now I'm doing building, and once I have something to show, I'll switch tracks? Or do you try to do the marketing since day zero?
Yeah, I think it depends on the product, right? Like some products you could mock up enough of a demo um, that the potential customers, you could start marketing it to them and getting pre-sales and things like that. Certain products you kind of have to, to kind of mimic like a real life scenario. You have to give them something to touch and feel
Mhm.
that they can hold in their hand and be able to say, "Oh yeah, I can see myself using that." I mean, it's to kind of give an example, right? Like, let's say you came up with the idea for Docker, right? Like, you listen to it, you're like, okay, virtual machines, big deal. Like, what's the big deal? Until you actually have the technology in front of you and be able to have that aha moment, you got to build the technology. And I think there's some businesses that are much easier to market as vaporware, as things that don't
Mhm.
exist, versus some products that you have to have it exist in some way, shape, or form before you can market it. Um, I think, ideally you can start the very basic marketing, and I treat like documentation as marketing, right? Especially if
Mhm.
you want to establish the fact that your product is legit. You can start documenting it, getting some of the SEO in there, getting working on on your landing page and things like that, kind of letting that seep through as you're building it. So, you know, it depends, right? It depends on the product, the type of product, the
Mhm.
type of audience that you're going to need to sell to at the price point you want to sell it to. Um, you know, yeah, it really depends on the product. I don't think there's one specific playbook. I think there's, you know, for some product categories, it just is easier.
Mhm.
Uh, and some, for whatever reason we choose, these harder product categories is just harder.
Okay.
So I think, I had seen one guy on Twitter that did like 2 3 days of building, and then he will always move to marketing. Like he will have days of marketing and then again building. So
Mhm.
I think it comes with experience, in my opinion. So maybe if I start next product, then maybe I'll have learned a much newer things and have more experience to like balance those out. Uh, so yeah,
Mhm.
so I think it really helps to balance that out. But I'm really not in position right now to actually be able to do that. Like I might
Mhm.
actually like not be able to build if I start marketing side by side right now. It's really hard.
Gotcha. Gotcha. You both mentioned, because being inspired by what other people do in that quote unquote hashtag building public space. Uh, how much inspiration do you draw from that? Like, do you get, oh, my next product idea could be an offshoot of this, or is it just, okay, this is a strategy for building that looks interesting, or
It's always interesting to see what's possible, right? Like, you see these folks and, I mean, and I'm not talking about the ones that are already established, but the ones where like they kind of come out of nowhere almost and they
Mhm.
go, wow, that guy, he started off with, no followers. This was his, like maybe his fifth or sixth product, and they kind of grow. It's always interesting to see those kind of stories
Mhm.
because those are the ones that, at least for me, like I relate to the
Mhm.
most. If I was like, DHH, for example, it's like a different story, right? The guy's like,
Mhm.
he's racing race cars, right? Like I don't relate to that. Um, but the ones that kind of started off or is starting off like right in front of your eyes at the same time, uh, and they're doing like really well. You're like, yeah, okay, I can see like how I could do something, you know, like that. I don't tend to look at the same product categories that they do,
Mhm.
because for one, once once there's a product leader out there, it's actually really hard to chase. I mean, it's
Mm.
possible, like you could kind of make a copycat and whatnot, and then get into like a Twitter fight at some point. But yeah, like for me, the inspiration is because it's something that I aspire to do, is to get that next hit, to get that
Mm.
kind of thing again, or to or to get a hit that's even bigger than the last thing that I built that had worked. Um, that's where I really see those stories as resonating with me.
Yeah. So yeah, I think for me, like I really remember like the from the book that DHS wrote. I forgot which book, but like he talks about scratching your own
Mm.
itch. Like if you have the need, just build it out yourself and then scratch your own itch. And
Yeah.
if others also buy that, then that's good for you. But you'll not get demotivated this way because it didn't sell, because it actually solves your problem. So for me, the motivation like doesn't really come from others' work. Like they are building this thing, and then I will also build. But
Mhm.
it comes from like myself. Like what am I doing in daily basis, and what am I struggling with? What I want to automate, and will that be helpful to others if I share? So that's the thing
Mhm.
that really motivates me, and that's where the inspiration for me comes from.
Gotcha. And are there any tools that you use like regularly? Because I'm guessing that being alone, you are your own bottleneck, in the sense that if you're not if you're working on something, you're not working on something else, and then you want to like basically be as optimized as possible. Are there any tools that you guys use to make your life easier in a sense, or like, okay, this part is really repetitive, I'm using whatever for that?
Yeah, like I'm a pretty simple guy. I tried to automate things years ago, and I found that it just took a long time to set things up. At one point, actually, I did hire somebody, and
Okay.
I tried to create processes and things like that. But because we were like basically a company of two, nobody
Mm.
really looked at the documentation, anyways. And the automation was just, I mean, unless it's used, it becomes very stale.
Mhm.
So there's this sort of like the equivalent of code rot in there, and this sort of code debt or documentation debt or automation debt, whatever you want to call it, right? So it has to be used a lot. I just find that like for me, I keep a lot of my things to do, for example, in reminders. I don't even use like some sort of project management board. I think like maybe like GitHub issues and
Mm.
GitHub projects maybe, but even then it's not very consistent. I just have like a almost like a flat file to do list dot
Mm.
text, and I just go look at it, and it's very kind of old
Yeah.
school, but I find that is the most efficient. If I have to do something, it's either done within like that hour, or if it's not done, it's not important enough. If I'm gonna get to it, I'm gonna just do it, and it's gonna keep coming back up again because it's a pain point. I've worked on teams, for example, that have like they spend a lot of time like working out processes and things like that. I think it works if you have a lot of new people onboarding onto your team and they're really
Mhm.
lost. But if you're a solopreneur, one of the biggest advantages is that everything just is just right up here. You got
Mm.
everything that you need to know. All the decision making is all like in your brain, and so having a lot of tools and different apps and things like that. I think that at least for me, it slows things down.
Okay.
So a regular flat file text to do dot text file is probably the
Mm.
most efficient way of handling things, and I'll just type faster if I need to, write an email. I mean, like,
Yeah, 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 gotcha.
aside from AI, right? Obviously, right? Like, you can
Mhm.
always feed everything into AI and get a pretty good result back. But in terms of automation, no, not really.
From your initial hesitation, Prabin, I'm gonna guess the answer is quite similar for you.
Not really. I don't do a lot of automation if I don't have to. And my working process is really simple. Like I do
Okay.
maintain a Trello board for the project, so I can actually uh, like track my ideas, so it doesn't it is at least searchable. So other than that, I actually work from simple like to do note, and I just like what is my priority for today, and that will only be there, and then what I want to release next, so that will be there, and then I just cross off on daily basis, and I remove those to do, and then I release, I notify everyone. So that's my working process. So it's really
Gotcha.
simple, and like Simon said, it's really old school, but it really works because you actually get to like cross off to do list, and you feel really
Mm,
productive doing that.
Yeah, the other thing I want to add here is like, not specifically automation, but if if I could kind of just, like in terms of like the tools, like it's just super simple, like spreadsheets, right? Like if I
mm,
need to track stuff, it's either in a to-do list, like Prabin just said, or it's like a spreadsheet. So very, and it's like, it's not even Airtable, right? It's like, there's no automation. It's
mm,
just like a Google Sheets that I just like paste. Okay, I need this, or this is done, and I do,
mm,
contact these like 10 potential clients. Okay, check, done. Reason for, uh, rejecting offer, like, and then just a quick kind of note, like it's nothing too fancy. It's like
mm.
really basic. Um,
Okay. I think I'm wired a bit different than you guys, and I'm the meme of a developer. I could do this in 10 minutes or spend 2 days automating it. Uh, so I feel like if I was to try to launch a product of my own, I would spend too much time trying to automate the dumbest thing, which, as you say, the keeping it simple is probably the best idea.
No, actually, I do like spend time on those, but like I'm juggling between two jobs essentially. So that's why I have really limited time, and I actually have to deliver every time. Like I have to deliver in the morning, I have to deliver in the afternoon. So I have like really less time. So those things don't come to mind right now, but previously
Yeah.
when I didn't have zero configures, then yeah, I would love to automate, and like you said, like developer wants to automate things.
Mm,
Yeah.
gotcha.
it's like I trust that I will eventually automate things if it gets repetitive and painful enough. Like,
Hmm.
so like it's sort of like I'll cross that bridge when I come to it.
Hmm.
So now that, as you guys are talking, I'm like, have I ever automated something? I'm like, yeah, I have, but I just totally forgot about it. And then, you know,
Mm,
it's sort of like I forgot about it. That's the whole point of automating it,
yeah.
right?
Mm,
So, but yeah, if the thing is repetitive enough, like I remember, like for example, there was this one blog I was trying to create, and then I would remind myself to create a blog post every week, and then I just got, you know, so sick and tired of writing the blog. Actually, I didn't even write the blog. I use OpenAI chat to write it, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to feed in the topic. I'm just going to have like a list of topic, and I'm just going to get the API to write it and post it and commit it and do all those things. Because
mm,
I was like, forget it. I'm not going to touch this website ever again, but I still want that SEO to be built over
mm,
time. So it became enough of a pain point. So I guess, to kind of expand on my previous answer is once something has become enough of a pain point, then I trust that I will get around to automating it, and
gotcha.
so that I can forget about it. Yeah.
Mm, makes sense. It's the second time you have referenced AI, for lack of a better term. How how does it come into your guys' lives as solopreneurs? Because the main promises are that it will give you superpowers, right? Are you guys feeling that superpower? Are you using it a lot, or is it making you lose time? How do you feel about AI in your solopreneur journey?
So I'll go first on this because I have really little thing to say on AI because like I haven't really dabbled into it like Simon did. And we normally only use that chat GPT and I feel like it saves so much time. Like I'm really new to front end stuff in Rails and when I ask chat GPT, like it gives correct answer and I know if something is correct or not. I am experienced to enough for that. So it really saves a lot of time and I think AI will save even more of our time in future and we just have to learn how to use it. So I think Simon will expand on that after that.
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about AI, I mean, there's really, three components, right? Like you got the component of like, how does it help me as a developer? Specifically, number two, how does it help me as a solopreneur in terms of my operations? And number three, I think this is the one, like when you go onto Twitter/X, is like, how can I use AI in my product to sell my product, right? Like, how can I develop it as a feature of some sort? Like, I think as a developer, it's kind of, I agree with the statement, right? Like, it's kind of given us superpowers. And I was, in a pre-call with Prabin, I was telling him like how with my latest project, for instance, I needed to learn Go, right? I didn't know how to program in Go, right? I've always, seen it around, especially around command line tools, for instance. And I bought a book on Go, and obviously, buying a book and being proficient enough at it to make something that you can use is, there's still a bit of a gap, but with, you know, AI, it helps to kind of fill in that gap quicker. It may not generate like the perfect code, but it generates enough of it that you can, with some, level of experience and research, be able to use it in some way. And sometimes, especially around refactoring, like I find, like I'm a, primarily a Ruby developer. Sometimes I write really ugly Ruby, right? And I throw it, I write it out like I want it to work this way. It's ugly, like the code is ugly. It would not pass like a code review in a normal organization. And I throw it into, AI and says, please refactor this to make it look nicer for me. And it comes up with better code, right? And I like that because, you know, as a developer, I don't want to be impeded by like I don't want to be Rubocop, for example, right? Like I don't want to be a human linter. I want to put my ideas down and I want my tool to kind of go in and make it look nicer. But the intent of my code should be mine. And that's how I kind of look at AI as it helps, in the developer process, in the solopreneurship. It kind of gives us that code reviewer, that kind of person that says like, hey, yeah, just a nitpick here, like, here's a little change. In terms of our operations, it's kind of, we kind of alluded to it, like, for automations and stuff like that, that's really useful. For programmatic SEO, for example, like let's say you're trying to do like marketing and you're trying to have lots and lots of, you're trying to flood the web, Google with your, search engine, with your articles and stuff like that. It helps. And then obviously, the last part is, how does it help in terms of making new products? I think, it does add a bit of magic to a lot of our products that otherwise might not have magic in it. I think we're still kind of discovering like new ways, with the Apple event yesterday. I think that got a lot of developers to start, having these, their brains are churning with ideas like, how do we use this, Apple Intelligence API now? Like, how do we use that? Like, can we monetize this part? Is there a business opportunity there? I think, we're still in a very nascent stage of, kind of that thinking, there's lots of opportunities still. So yeah, I mean, it's, that's a very general kind of broad stroke answer to your question. Like, how does it help? I think it's immensely helpful. Overall, it does increase our potential and our productivity. Yeah.
Yeah, I have similar feelings about AI. The Until I want to do something advanced, in which I feel like then I'm probably because I haven't dabbled with it enough, right? But I feel like when I try to do something advanced, like okay, I'm trying to find a way to architecture this complex thing, whatever, and I'm trying to use the AI as a sounding board, then I'm losing more time than I would with a human. But other than that, I do agree with the sentiment that it the way I've always described it is it reduces to the mean, basically. So if you are really advanced in a topic, it will reduce to the mean, and you will have a lot of nitpicks with it. If you are not advanced in a topic, like you were discovering Go, it will basically put you from beginner to average person immediately, right? Um, but yeah, I do echo the Simon's sentiment on that. I think we're getting close to the closing time. I have one last query for you both. Is what if I was an aspiring solopreneur, a lambda guy like me, like I have never launched a product. I basically know how to code, but I don't know anything about marketing, products, etc. What would be your advice? Like you have a blank person before you, and what would be your advice? Your advice if they wanted to launch themselves into the entrepreneurship slash solopreneurship arena?
Simon?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go first. I mean, I have a 13-year-old son, right? And he likes programming. So actually, I've been talking to him about this, and
Mhm.
what I said to him is just launch, right? Just make something and put it out there, because you
Mhm.
really don't know if there's a business case for that product or whatever. I mean, there's certain exceptions, right? Like if you work in that industry and all your colleagues in that industry, because
Sure.
you're all that domain knowledge says, yeah, why isn't there a tool for this, and then you create that tool. Obviously you already know that there's a market for it, but in a lot of cases you really don't know if there is a market for it, especially as an outsider stepping in, or if it's like something that hasn't really been invented before. um, so yeah, I would say, to the person who is completely new to it, to just launch, make something that interests you, try to learn something that you didn't already know before, because a lot of the other stuff you'll pick it up, right? Like, let's say you're a developer and you know nothing about marketing. Well, you're going to launch, then you're not going to get any customer, typically. I mean, unless you're extraordinarily like lucky and, but in most cases you won't be, and you're going to have to now learn, like, okay, I got to market this in some way, and you'll start listening to podcasts, you'll start reading Twitter posts, or stuff on Reddit, and blog posts and whatnot, to kind of learn that process, like, okay, how do I get people to look at this stuff? And
Mm.
okay, now I got to look into things like keyword research, now I got to look into things like maybe running some ads, maybe now I have to do some TikTok videos or whatnot. So, by launching something, that something
Yeah.
becomes a platform for your learning.
Mm.
Versus if you don't have that platform, it's easy to just like, I think it was Rob Walling, right? Like he coined the term like entrepreneur, right? Like it's easy to
Mm.
just kind of continually look at the stuff, and it's addictive, right? So you read a blog post and you're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, and then you might jot it down in your notebook, but you'll never come back to it, and you'll never get to apply those learnings, and you'll
Mm.
forget about it at some point. But if you have a product, even if the product fails, it still acts as something that you can stand on and start trying out different things, just like the people who do it and have been doing it for a long time.
Mm.
So I say the biggest value is just launch and use it to as an opportunity to learn across the board on how to run a business.
Yeah.
Okay. And you, Prabin, what would be the advice you would give to that hypothetical person?
So my advice is also same as Simon. Like you should launch, and the thing is like whatever you find interesting, just do that and then launch that, because it will be really easy than searching for some inspiration
Mm.
and motivations. L- or just be out there and then do things, put yourself out there, just build stops, and like you will feel like you don't have like motivation or like next product idea, but you will get that eventually. Like when I started Twitter, I didn't like when I started active
Mhm,
on Twitter, then I didn't know like I will be this person. But as I see others and like doing stuff like selling things, like I have been selling for like now 4 years, but uh, I had never thought of like actually making money out of it. But once I have started product, then
mhm,
things are coming to mind. Like I want to do PDF book where I want to like put whatever knowledge I have. I know I am not professional, but it will help someone, and someone will buy. I know that.
mhm,
So it will be helpful for someone. Someone.
mhm,
So product ideas will come. Just be there, be present, and build things.
mhm,
This will also like increase your log surface area, like Aaron Francis says. I hope I'm naming incorrectly. So
yeah.
this is all about like this is really a long game, and this is all about like being successful in the near future and not right now. So that's the motivation you will have. You should have.
Mhm,
If you are like solving your problem, then I don't think there will be any chance to be demotivated because you will at least be using your product.
mhm. Sure. Makes sense. Both the advice for me as the uninitiated makes sense. In any case, I think we can end the podcast here. Thank you both so very much for being here. It was on my end a really passionating discussion. I feel like I learned a lot. So thank you both very much for having been here.
Yeah, thanks.